Today I'm joined by Coach Dennis Marshall. We're going to discuss AAU basketball, college basketball, and a little bit about his past and also his son, who was a former McDonald's All-American and NBA player, Kendall Marshall. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.
No problem. Well, the first thing I wanted to get started with the tweet that you had the other day that kind of got a lot of attention from a lot of different people in the D.C. area when you said the game of basketball is regressing more than any other sport in America. IQ and skill levels suck at every level. Coaches looking for athletes that can't play worth shit. So can you kind of go into what made you want to kind of send that out? Or...
Yeah, I go to a lot of games, and I train a lot of kids, and I just feel that basketball is our sport. It's kind of our pastime, and the quality of the game just seems to, go down and get worse and worse, while our athletes, from an athletic standpoint, are getting better and better. I feel like the skill level portion of it is just not as important to most of them. And then, it starts at the top with the coaches and the kids that they choose to recruit or pick for the AAU teams or whatever the case may be. So many of these kids, they can run, they can jump, they can dunk and do stuff, but, they can't shoot, they can't use both hands. And I tell kids all the time, you get the LeBrons and those type of players when you can do all the basic skills and then you add your athleticism with that. But now it's just so much of the skill is missing at every level, not just, at the amateur level, but in the pros as well. The skill level's bad at the NBA level as well.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is, where do you think the disconnect is coming from? Because you're saying that even though players today are probably more athletic than they've ever been, but they're less skilled. But when you started this off, you said, you're training kids. We know that a lot of kids have personal trainers now. So if they're not working on skill, what are those trainers actually doing? And where do you see the disconnect coming?
Well, I can't speak for other trainers. I can only speak for myself. I'm a big skills person. People would know when I coach high school, AAU, my teams were very skilled. Rarely did I have the best collection of talent, but we were skilled and knew how to play, and we could compete with anyone. The disconnect, I feel, is that, number one, I think too much emphasis is on games nowadays. I mean, these kids play AAU ball half the year, high school ball part of the year, spring league, summer league, fall league, team camps. When you're playing that many games, there's not enough time to fix the flaws in your game. You need time without games to fix a shot, to improve your left hand or right hand, whatever the case may be, to learn how the game is played, to work on your footwork. But, when you're in a game, you're going to do what's comfortable. So I think part of the disconnect, number one, is kids just play way too many games nowadays. So you don't really have the time you need. And then I think the second part of it is the disconnect is just parents, they're uneducated about what to do and they don't know. And they take the wrong advice from the wrong people, and that hurts them and it hurts their kid, but they don't know. So you can't fault people who don't know. They're just doing what they think is best. But a lot of the cases, it's wrong. Where for me, when I needed to get knowledge about what to do with Kendall, I went to workouts and I talked to people who have done it and were in the same situation. Orlando Wright, Chris Wright's father, Austin Freeman, his father, Ty Lawson and his father, guys that were working with Kevin Durant when he was in high school. So I sought out the resources of people that were doing it or had done it and had the knowledge. With these parents nowadays, they just do what they think, or they talk to people that don't really know. So they're just uneducated about what really needs to be done. And that's where the disconnect starts. And then the last part of it is coaches just want to win. So, you don't have time to teach a kid. So you got to get kids that are athletic and things like that to win basketball games. And it's not all coaches, so don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of coaches out there that will take a kid that can jump over a kid that has a high IQ and skill level.
Okay, so let's go back to your first part of your answer. You said that you believe kids play too many games now.
Yes.
So if you're starting at the youth level and your goal is, let's say your goal is high school, and you want to go to the best possible high school that you can go to, let's say in the Washington, D.C. area, you want to play in a WCAC conference. A lot of parents and players are led to believe that they need to play against top competition in order to be prepared to play at that level. So at the youth level, they start to play maybe the PYBL against elite competition. They play on the AAU, not necessarily circuit, but they play AAU against hopefully the best competition as well. They work out with other elite players sometimes, and then they may play, like you said, for not their high school, but their middle school at that particular time as well. So for someone who wants to achieve the highest level of basketball for that next level, you still believe that too many games are being played for the younger kids?
Absolutely, because I think that's a myth. I don't think that theory is necessarily true. I don't think kids have to continue to play against elite level competition to improve and play at these high schools. I think, number one, if you get in the gym and you're working with the right people and you're working on, if you can do things like finish with both hands, pass with both hands, you can shoot and halfway understand the game, you could play with and against anybody if you can do those things. Playing games, yes. Now, I'm not saying games don't help, because they absolutely do help, but they also reinforce things you do wrong. If you're constantly playing games and you can't shoot, the chances of you in another year being a better shooter are very slim. You probably still can't shoot. I hear it all the time. Coach say he can't shoot. Well, they've been saying that about the kids since 8th grade. He's a junior. He still can't shoot. Well, there's a reason for that. And then you continue to play games, you're enforcing all your bad habits. I remember when Kendall was in 8th grade, we took a season off of playing games. We went a whole year. We didn't play AU. We just worked on his skills to get him ready for high school, and it didn't hurt him. Now, obviously, I know you can't compare every kid to that situation, but it is an example of it doesn't hurt you to take a break from games and work on your craft.
Got it. So let's just go back to that one for one other second. So what are your thoughts about kids who don't play playground basketball now, as opposed to kids from another generation, from older generations, who may have played more playground basketball against older kids or possibly men, and they use that to, I guess, develop and work on their skills? Are you a fan of playground basketball, or do you believe that just simple skill work, whether it be in the gym alone or with a trainer or with whomever, is better for your game?
I think it's a combination of both. I definitely think that kids need to play some pickup basketball, but the problem nowadays is you have to play pickup basketball with the right people. When we used to go to playgrounds and play pickup basketball, everybody out there could play. So I don't think you improve from a skill standpoint, but you definitely improve as far as your toughness, your basketball IQ, and things like that. No question about it. But you also have to get in the gym and work on your skills. I mean, back in the day, as much as people play pickup basketball, they got in the gym, worked on their ball handling, shot 1,000 shots a day. I mean, you hear the stories of these older guys, how many shots they shot every day, things like that. Kids are not doing that at all. I mean, I remember guys say I shot 100 free throws a day. Now it's hard to find a kid that can shoot 75% from the free throw line. When kids go to the free throw line, there's a chance they're going to miss one of the two. So I think you do need a combination of both, but I think the hard part is for the pickup is nowadays, where can you go to play pickup basketball and get get a decent 10, 15 kids on the court that can all play a little bit. And I used to do that few years ago. I would get a gym and invite some of the better players from the area and get them all in there to play pickup. And it was great basketball, great run. But you almost have to organize something like that or find people or place to even get a good pickup game. So that makes it a little more difficult than it used to be.
Okay, so let me I know you said that you were able to go to people or parents, other parents, and use them as resources. I think out of the 4 parents that you named, I think 3 of the kids may have been McDonald's All-Americans. And I also think Ty Lawson was definitely a high major talent as well. He may not, I can't remember if he was McDonald's or not. But for your son in particular, using them as a resource, I know your son was identified early as a very talented player. Was that something that, you may have been traveling in different circles than some other parents may be right now, and they may not have those actual resources? And if kids are right now playing at a younger age and they're in AAU orgs by the time they're 8U, wouldn't that AAU org possibly be a resource to them as well?
Well, so the first part is anyone has those resources that I had. I didn't know anyone. I didn't grow up a basketball player. So I didn't know a lot. But what I did was I'm one of those people, if you want to learn how to do something, you find the best people that do it and you learn from them. If you want to, I went to coaching clinics where, Coach K, Coach Williams, Doc Rivers, guys that I knew were successful to learn how to coach. So I went to their clinics and sat there and listened and took notes. And I did the same thing with basketball. I said, okay, who are all these players I keep hearing about? All right, I'm going to go to a tournament. I used to take Kendall wherever we heard a good player was playing. We went to the tournaments. We found out who their parents were. I sat with them. I asked them questions. I seek these people out. I found them. No one brought them to me. I just went and found them. I just said, okay, we got to learn from the best people and do what they do to be like them. So that's what I did. And any of these parents can do that. And I told a couple of people one time, and they thought I was being arrogant, but I really wasn't. I was being logical. I said, why, if I train and a parent has a kid that's a guard, why would you not bring your kid to me? It's like, I took my son to Katie Smirker Duffy. She was a heck of a guard, knew the game. They're like, why are you taking your son to her? Why not? She's been successful at every level. She knows what she's doing. Why would I not do that? So any parent has that resource. Any parent can find the people who have done it, not people who talk about it, but people who've actually done it. And there's a lot in the DC area, and they can go to them and they can watch, they can ask questions and do things like that, and then kind of find their way. So that's what I did. And the second part of your question, as far as that,
using the AAU org as a resource.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at some of these AAU organizations now, it's like, you got people that start up organizations or teams because their kid couldn't make the better team, so they go start some up. You're going to go ask them? I mean, what are they going to be able to tell you? You have to ask people that are knowledgeable, that have been there. And there's some really, really knowledgeable people in the DC area as far as AAU, but people don't know who they are. So it's the same thing. You got to find out who these people are. A lot of times, I used to tell my kids I train, I know they're not good enough to play for TakeOver or play for DC Premier or Team Durant. Go to their workouts. Go to their tryouts. You don't have anything to lose. You get to see what's out there. You get to meet people. You network. You can ask coaches questions. A lot of these guys are good guys. They'll answer your questions. They will help you. It doesn't mean they're going to put you on the team, but it also doesn't mean they won't give you some advice to help you out. So it's just one of those things where you have to ask the right people. If you can't get into an organization that produces these players and works with these guys, you can still go to their workouts. I know their workouts are open to anyone. Go, ask questions, talk to people, find some parents, and then go from there. I mean, the DC area has tons of resources for good, how to develop players and do what you need to do. So, some parents just got to get out and do it. And it's hard. It's not easy. I
Mm-hmm.
tell people all the time, when my kids were coming up, not just my son, but I had Division I lacrosse player, Division I volleyball player. It's like you're on the team with them. You have to guide them, but you have to be there and everything. You got it. When they got to go, you got to go. I didn't know anything about lacrosse. I had to teach myself. I had to ask people. I had to talk. Same thing with volleyball. You just gotta get out there and you gotta do it too.
Okay, I get you. So I know you're a big IQ guy, basketball IQ guy, as far as identifying IQs and players. So we know that Kendall began to play varsity at a very young age. I believe sixth grade, right?
Right.
And he was 11 years old. So I think he started varsity sixth grade. He played also seventh grade. He said he took a year off in the eighth, and he played 4 years of high-level varsity basketball at O'Connell.
Right.
How influential do you think those first 2 seasons of varsity basketball were for in developing his IQ for not only the last 4 years of high school, well, his 4 years of high school, and also for him going forward into college?
I think it was very important in a lot of ways. And let me start by saying the competition he was playing against wasn't very good, so it afforded him that opportunity. It was in a Christian league, so a lot of the kids, great kids, but they weren't the best basketball players. So he was lucky to get an opportunity because of that. It helped him in a standpoint like with kid. I don't care how bad a kid is, but if they're bigger, stronger, and faster, you still have to think and figure things out. You have to figure out how to get shots off. You have to figure out how to get to the basket. You have to figure out how to get around, how to play angles defensively, how to play through bumps and bruises and things like that, being the physical play. So all that stuff comes into play when you're playing against bigger, older guys. And then you deal with the publicity, so to speak, of being young and playing with a bunch of older guys. So now the mental, you're learning how to speak about things. You're learning how to, give people information as far as what you're going through and what you're learning. So you're having to do a lot of communicating, a lot of talking at a young age that you probably shouldn't have to do at that time, but unfortunately kind of comes with the territory. So I think it helped him tremendously. I mean, because then as he got older, and I don't know if most people would tell you he wasn't a kid. A lot of things weren't a big deal to him. His demeanor off the court and on the court was about the same. He was pretty stoic at times and very, mild manners. So, and I think a lot of that was from things he went through as a kid, and he was able to mentally absorb everything and process it a little bit differently than other kids could. So I think it helped a lot.
Okay. Well, we know that recently, Roy Williams, the head coach in North Carolina, has given high praise to Kendall for his IQ previously. I saw him do a press conference, and when he spoke about him, when he was at O'Connell, he came up and he kind of showed his IQ while playing pickup at the university. So I also saw a tweet from you in which you said Cole Anthony is a good offensive talent, but his IQ is awful. So my question to you is, if he can identify that Kendall's IQ was extremely high at that particular time, why do you think that he's now recruiting players or necessarily athletes who may not have the best basketball IQ at this particular time?
Well, I think that at that level, when you're the Carolinas, Kansas, Duke, schools like that, you're recruiting the best players. These guys have to win games. They get paid on winning games, not. So you got to get the best player. And Cole Anthony is a talent. He's a talent. Is he a guy that I know if I put the ball in his hands at the end of the game, he's going to make the right play and win the game for us? Personally, me, probably not. But I mean, there's so many players that are like that. They're really good and talented and can do so many things, but the decision making is across the board is just. And I wish they had better IQ because I think they would be amazing players, not just very good players, but just an amazing. Can you imagine if Cole Anthony had the IQ of an Ed Cota with his, Ed Cota's nowhere near as talented as Cole Anthony. If he had that IQ, can you imagine how good he would be? I mean, it would be amazing. So I don't think it's that they choose to recruit a kid that doesn't have IQ versus does. I think you feel you get the best player you can get, and then we can teach him and coach him up to be the player we need him to be. Unfortunately, kids are so good, you may only get a year to do that, which is not enough time. Let's say, I don't know. I haven't been told this. I think Cole's probably going to leave after this year. But imagine him as a junior at Carolina with that talent, how good he would be, opposed to, I'm thinking he's going to leave. I don't know. I could be wrong, but you just never know.
Right. So I kind of want to push back on that. For the most part, do you view Cole as more on the athletic side than on the decision or high basketball IQ side?
Yeah, I would not on the same levels as good as a player, but I would put him where I would think of him almost like I think of a Russell Westbrook.
So more athletic,
can get your own shot, very talented. That's where I would put him.
So, but I kind of want to go back to the question. It kind of makes it seem like you're saying that if you recruit kids who have high IQs at that level, that you may not necessarily be able to win games. You're looking for the best player available, which it looks like in this particular instance may be the best athlete at the position, but not necessarily the best decision maker at the point guard position. So are you saying that if he had taken another kid with a higher IQ, lesser athletic ability, that they wouldn't be able to win games?
That remains to be seen because, at Carolina, if you look at their traditional point guards, they've never not had an elite level top 3, 4, 5 in the class point guard. So it's hard to say, could they still win games? Do I think they could with the players that they get? I think they could. A prime example is a kid from Virginia. Their point guard now. I mean, he's as basic as they come, as solid as they come.
Key Clark?
Yes, Key Clark.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do anything great, but he does a lot of things well. And I would trust that kid. I know he's going to make the right play 9 times out of 10. And so now if you already had him on a team with some pretty good players and they won a national title, imagine him on a team with 4 pros, surefire pros. I mean, that to me, that helped Kendall. Kendall wasn't a great athlete. He wasn't the fastest. But, I mean, his starting 5, that starting 5 were all first-round picks. And it makes your job easy. And you can win championships, with those kind of players if you got the right group of guys playing together. So, do I think it can be done if you get a lesser player? I think it can, but also as a coach,
not a lesser player, a lesser athlete.
Maybe? Yeah, lesser athlete.
Right.
Maybe a guy that can't. Kendall was never a guy that could just go out and get his own shot whenever he wanted to. But I definitely think you can win a championship and win with those kind of guys. But but I mean, how many of us coaches are going to pass? The number 1 ranked point guard in the country now, take a lesser player. I mean, not many of us are going to do that. And the last part of this is we don't know. And I don't know how good some of these guys recruit. I think there's a lot of coaches that don't recruit very well. you watch a guy in high school, you got to be able to know if that's going to translate to the collegiate level. And a lot of times, the stuff these guys can do in high school, you get scouted in college. They get 2 or 3 days to prepare for you, and they're going to make you uncomfortable. So you're not necessarily always going to be that same player in college that you were in high school.
So, but where do you think that change or that shift kind of occurred? Because if we just go back maybe a couple of years ago, let's take Trayvon Duval, Colin Sexton, and Trey Young. I think they were all three in the same class. Trey Young, clearly, once he got to college, farther ahead than any of them as far as skill, shooting, IQ. But at some point, Trayvon Duval, Colin Sexton were elevated over him, and a lot of it had to do with athleticism. So, like, where do you think that the shift kind of occurred, where we moved away more so from looking at skill, looking at IQ, and now just focusing on the fabulousness of the athleticism?
Well, I think it's happened a lot probably over the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, where it's been about the athlete. And I don't know, it's hard to say why, but when you look at if you look at the results, look at the guys that are winning championships and teams are playing well and I never thought Duval was going to be a pro. I watched the things he did, and again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I think I'm very good at seeing what a kid does and seeing if that's going to translate to the next level and then the next level after that. And I never saw pro in his game. I never saw pro in Thon Maker's game. He's there, but not what everybody else saw. And now you're seeing guys like Steph Curry, very, very skilled. Team win championships, starting point guard on a championship team. Kawhi Leonard comes to me as a guy that's very skilled. He doesn't, he can dunk on guys, but he's a 1-2 dribble pull-up guy, face-up guy, knocks down a three, skill, high skill level. So it's coming back, and I think Golden State helped a lot where guys with skills are starting to come back to the game. So I think it was a stretch there where it was about the athleticism, and the disconnect was they see guys, oh, wow, he can do that, he can do this. So it's the wow factor. It's the immediate satisfaction. But long term, the skill level is always going to win out. I don't care, at what level.
But why do you think more coaches don't take that approach that you're taking?
Because everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid to miss out on that next LeBron or that next. They're afraid to miss out. So they're going to go with the wow guy, because if the wow guy works on his skills, the wow guy becomes the guy. So they don't want to miss out on that. Where every time I coach, I really didn't care, what team I got. I coached with Takeover. I had the third team, the third 17U team. And one year I had a team of guys, third guys that nobody else wanted. We had 5 guys go Division I off that team. We beat DC Assault's top team with Mellow Trimble, not once, but twice. And we were just kids you never heard of. So, and it wasn't because our players were better, because they weren't necessarily better, but our IQ and skill level was so high that we could do whatever we wanted to do against whoever we wanted to do it against. And we were always in the game, and we were going to make free throws, again, because of our skill level. So I love coaching those kind of kids. Those are the only kids I'd rather have. But coaches are afraid to take kids like that. And I don't know why. I wish more of them did. And I have this discussion with Kendall all the time. I'm like, why won't schools like Carolina take one of the best 6'4", 6'5" shooters, these guys that play at mid-level, give them a scholarship You know what it means to have a shooter like that on your wing with the athlete y'all have? He's like, but they can't do anything else. I'm like, and we disagree on that. And I'm like, but you can make a kid a halfway decent defender. You can't make
When
an
you
athlete a shooter. He
when
can't
when
shoot.
you say mid level, when you say mid level, do you mean mid major level?
Yes, yeah, mid-major level. Because I think
Yeah.
there are mid-major level kids that can play and should be playing at a high level, but coaches are scared to take a chance on them. And it's like, man, if you got athletes all over the court, you got a guy that can sit on the wing and he's going to knock it down. Why would you not take a guy like that? You know, I've taken guys like that, and they're going to knock a shot down. But that athlete, if they play back on him and pack the paint, man, I know he's not going to make the shot. So we got to figure out something else. And you can't make an
So
athlete a shooter.
right.
If he's not a shooter by the time you get to college, he ain't going to be able to shoot.
So you don't think that a kid can like kind of reps and work additional work and become a better shooter in college?
I think it can happen, but it goes back to what I said. Does it happen? You guys play so many games. Improving their skills and stuff is not number one on their priority list. And plus, they think, okay, I've already made it. I got this scholarship. I got this offer, or I got drafted. I'm good. And that's where part of the disconnect and that's where they fall, because it's like, I'll give you a prime example. Micah Gilchrist was one of the best talents I ever seen at the high school level. But, I mean, he's been playing basketball all his life, and he still can't shoot.
Right.
You know,
so you don't think shooting, you don't even think that when he got to the pro level that shooting became a priority, even just coming from the organization itself, for him to work on with the shooting coaches? Or do you think it's just something that he just wasn't capable of just doing regardless of how much work he put in?
I think shooting is one of those things that you can fix if you put in the time. And then now I don't know him, and I can't speak on what he's doing or not doing, but I have seen some of the worst kids that couldn't shoot put in time and fix their shot. So I believe it's something that can be done, but it's just the society now, the basketball society, no one's willing to do that. No one's going to go in the gym for 3 or 4 hours a day and work on their shot. They're just not. There's too many other things they could be doing, and that's just not one of them. And I believe if they did,
so
they could fix it.
So I know you're big on IQ, and I think that's very important. So I kind of want to ask you about a couple of kids that people are really oohing and ahhing over right now. You already kind of gave your opinion on Cole Anthony. What do you think about Lamell Ball? What are your thoughts on him as far as a prospect for the NBA?
Very talented. I wasn't a fan at first. About a year ago, I was like, well, he's not really playing against competition. Let me see. But as I follow his progression and then seeing who he's doing it against, he's good. Like, he's going to be one of those guys that he can just put the ball in a hole. I put him in like the Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams category. He's got decent size on him. They'll put a few pounds on him. And like some of the stuff he does with the ball, you can't teach it. It's natural. It's instinctive. Getting to spots, getting shots off, having an array of shots in his arsenal that he can go to, and he can pass the ball as well. And guys that can score and pass the ball, they have a high IQ. And I think he's going to be, a great pro. I think he's going to be a starter in the NBA. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star, but I think he'll be a starter in the NBA, and I think he'll have a really good career.
So you're actually high on LaMelo. Maybe not necessarily a franchise player, maybe not an all-star, but you do believe he will be a very productive pro.
Yeah, I definitely think he will. Not many guys can do what he does with the ball, and he's confident. He's confident. He doesn't get shaken, which is a big part of it as
well. The other thing I want to ask you about, Trey Jones and Ashton Haggins. Have you paid any attention to either one of those guys?
I've watched Trey Jones a few times, and I've watched Ashton uh, a lot as well. I like Trey Jones. I think Trey Jones is probably a backup guy, uh, a career NBA backup point guard. I think he can play at that level. Um, I don't think he's a starter, anything like that, but I think he's a solid guy that can come in and give you a few minutes, not make a lot of mistakes, knock down an open shot. Um, and Ashton, I think eventually he's a starter in the NBA. I like his versatility. I think he can play both backcourt positions if he needs to. Um, but I haven't watched them enough. I haven't watched a ton of them. A lot of guys. I've been watching a lot of Nico Mannion and Pritchard from Oregon. I've seen a lot more of their games. But
So you said Nico Manning and who was the other player?
Pritchard from Oregon State. Oregon, not Oregon State. Oregon.
Okay. Are those your two favorite players at this time?
As far as point guards, probably I love Nico Mannion. He's got his game is NBA. I think he's going to be a better pro than a college player.
Okay, so you like right now, you like Nico more so than Trey Jones, Ashton Haggins at the point guard position going into the draft, possibly?
Do, yep. I like him as my I have him as my number one point guard. But a lot of people disagree with that, but I just the things he can do, his reads on pick and rolls, his distance from where he can shoot the ball, his mid-range floater game is NBA-like. I mean, he's got a nice package, and his ball handling skills are tremendous. So I really like him a lot. I think he doesn't have a lot of college experience. He's a freshman, and he's going to get better. But his IQ is high, and he can play. That kid, his reads, he makes NBA reads at the college level.
So he would definitely be your number one point guard this year.
He would be mine. And I mean, and I don't know, a lot of that depends on, do you need a guy to step in and play right now? Do you need a guy that you can give a year or two, So, there's not a lot of distance in those guys, but usually it's a bad team, so you're going to let a guy grow. So if I needed a point guard, that's who I would take.
Okay. And last question, I kind of want to go back to talk about your son. You kind of touched on this earlier about how, I guess at an early age, he was kind of identified as being a phenom or being very talented. And I guess he had to endure that all the way through, his 12th grade year into which he became a McDonald's All-American. He kind of fulfilled his potential, most people would say. But as far as the attention, sometimes the attention, both the positive and the negative, like how do you believe that impacted him as a player and also him as an individual?
Well, it impacted him in a lot of ways from a positive and negative standpoint. When you're, regardless of who you are, when you're a good player, and you're identified young, everybody wants to prove a point against you. And then if people come see you play and you don't have your best game, you're not all that. They don't watch you play for months. They come to one game, you don't have a good game and all that. So it built that toughness. It built that mental toughness. And I did a lot of preparing and telling him this is going to happen. They're saying this because of this. These are the people you need to focus on. This is who you need to listen to. So, and, to this day, he doesn't necessarily enjoy coming back here. And one thing we never understood about the D.C. area is the D.C. area will hate on its own players. And I never understood. It was like, if anything, you want to uplift the guys from your area, but like Kendall and Chris Wright, it was like people just found things to hate on. It's like, why? So he doesn't miss this area for those reasons. But on the positive side, it makes you a competitor. You want people to bring their best against you because now you have at every game you have to play your best, and you're not going to, but you're forced to. From that standpoint, they're going to come at you. And then it also just, when he got to college, he was so prepared for the stuff that other guys aren't, because when you play it in the WCAC and you're playing against other D1 guys every night. So he wasn't shell shocked when he got there. Where a lot of guys were like, okay, whoa,
Right.
this guy's good. If they go to a public school and where they score 30 or 40, WCAC, guys not scoring 30 or 40 a night. If you had 18, or 20, you had a pretty good game in that league because it was
Right.
so good. So it really helped him a lot, being in the area, playing in the league, in the WCAC, playing AAU for Boo, and the opportunities some of these guys gave him to get in the gym and work out with their guys. You know, Curtis Malone, and Keith Stevens, and Antoine Jackson, and Kevin Sutton. These guys looked out and made, whether he played for them or not, they still got him in the gym and got him against good players and made him go through stuff that he needed to excel later. So, yeah, from a positive standpoint, it's great. It was good.
So, the decision for him to play for Boo Williams, what was kind of behind that decision? If there were other high-level programs, closer in the area, since he was in the DC area for high school?
That was a very hard decision for us because we liked a lot of the guys here. But when Kendall was young, when he was a freshman, there was a lot of good guards in that area. And I think TakeOver was just starting, and they had Jason Clark, CJ Gardner, and they had another point guard. They had 3 point guards. And then Boo really didn't have a point guard. He was looking for one, and we were actually going down there to play on his 16 and under team. Well, they didn't have a point guard for 17, so they tried him out there. They had really good wings and bigs. They had Ed Davis and all these guys. So he fit in there. He didn't have to do a whole lot because all the other guys were so good. So it was a perfect fit. It really wasn't that we didn't like any of the other teams here or the coaches, because we seriously thought about it. But, when a kid is trying to reach a goal, you have to put them in the right situation. And for him,
so it was more about.
Huh?
No, I'm sorry. It was more so about the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the right fit at the right time, and it was just a better fit for him at that time. Not saying he couldn't have been the player he was on one of the teams here, but just at that time, they needed a point guard, and it was just a good fit. So he went down there, and there was no reason to leave year after year because Boo was fair to Kendall. He treated him right, gave him opportunity, and his assistant coaches did a good job of talking to him and keeping his head on right and preparing him. So there was just it was just a good situation, and we try to be loyal to who's loyal to us. So there was just no need to leave or go anywhere or play for anyone different.
So anything that you would change in looking back, we know he achieved McDonald's, we know he achieved the NBA, but going back to the youth level for him, would there be anything that you would change if you could?
Definitely. No, 3 things for sure. There's 3 things I would change. Number 1 is I would have enjoyed the journey a little bit more than I did. I was uptight a lot, and I don't feel I really enjoyed it as much as I should have from a parent perspective. The second thing is I would have taught him how to shoot a floater. I never taught him that because I didn't like the shot, but he could potentially still be playing right now if he had that in his game, which he didn't, and that's my fault. And the third thing we would change, and we both have said this, is we would have went to a different high school. That was probably the biggest. I won't say it was a mistake, but it definitely wasn't the best decision out of all the decisions we made. We kind of, dropped the ball and messed up on that one. So,
Why? Why? But why would you change the high school if the league itself was if the conference itself was so competitive? You kind of mentioned previously that he had a chance to play against other D1 players in high school in that conference. So why would you change that piece about it?
well, I spoke with him a couple weeks ago, and I asked him that question. We discussed it. He said I would have went to DeMatha, and the whole thought behind that was that he needed to play when he could play freely, like when he played with Boo and his sophomore season at Carolina, where he just had the ball and could just beat a player's capable. He was really, really good. And a lot of times people say he was better than they thought he was. But in high school, he was so structured, and they had to pass, and they couldn't do this. And if you shot too early, you got benched. If you did that, and you go through that for 4 years, it changes your whole mindset. And then, when Kendall got to the NBA, I remember distinctively when the GM and coach took him out to dinner to tell him, you have to shoot. We don't care. We want you to take 10 shots a game, some layups, some threes, and 3 or 4 shots that you have no business taking. So your GM and everybody's telling you to do that. So his mindset, he just couldn't break out of that mindset from 4 years of high school to just not being able to, play freely and take the shots. And he's told me that. We've discussed it. He just wished he would have went to a high school where, he's watched the DeMatha guys. He grew up with them, playing against them, and he saw how they were able to just play through their mistakes. And he wasn't afforded that opportunity. He think it hurt his development a lot.
Got it. So it wasn't so much the conference itself. It was just another school within the conference he kind of wished he could have played for.
Yep.
Got it. So many consider him to be pass first. And I kind of want to ask you, if he's pass first, is it possible to make a pass first point guard too structured? Do you understand my question?
He was pass first, but I would tell people to do this. Just go watch his highlights from his sophomore season at Carolina, or his not rookie season, but his second season with the Lakers. And then you will see how a pass first point guard, yes, he's pass first, but he could put the ball in the hole. He did average 9 points a game that year with LA, which for him in the NBA, it's really good. I don't think people know how hard it is to average. There's stars in the NBA, so a lot of them average, 8 to 11 points a game. And he shot 39% from three. So, yes, he was still pass first, and it wouldn't have changed him, the player he was. It would have made him more attractive and more valuable as a player and a better player. And maybe he could have lasted a little bit longer.
Got it. So the last thing, not the last thing, but I have a couple other questions.
That's
sorry,
fine.
I apologize. But so, after even believing that, it was so structured at that particular high school, he still was McDonald's. Do you believe that some of the McDonald's nomination, selection, all that may have been more so political?
No, I wouldn't say that, because, I made sure I put him in every situation where he could prove himself. I mean, he went to the NBA Top 100 camp and got MVP. That year, he played on the AAU circuit with Boo, so he was seen by everybody everywhere. They won Peach Jam once. So he won and played well in big games against other people. So I definitely wouldn't say it was political, because he was, and if you look at all the rankings, he was right up there with all the top point guards. He might have been behind Kyrie and Brandon Knight, but other than that, he was right there.
Okay. So, last question for sure this time. For you, what are you doing now within the basketball spectrum?
Um, what I do is I just get some information to some colleges about kids, and I train kids, and that's about it right now. I've spent my whole life around basketball, so now I'm trying to not do as much and do some other things, but mainly training and going to watch kids and sending reports out to coaches and just giving them my opinion and answering any questions they have about a particular kid.
At what level? Is that the high major level, mid major, low major, or all levels?
It's kind of a mixture of a lot of different schools. Not that many high majors, just maybe 3 or 4, and then a few mid majors, but a lot of low majors and D2s, D3s. So,
are you doing any? Are you going back into the AAU realm again, or are you done with that?
I'm probably done with that. I like training. I like helping kids get their skills and stuff up. So I don't think I'm necessarily going to get back to AAU coaching. Plus, I'm getting a little older now, so I like to travel a little bit. I don't want to use all my vacation time for AAU anymore.
Got it. So I know you give a lot of tips to parents online. Is there any particular tip you want to give to parents right now in closing who may be listening?
Yeah, I just want to tell them that games are a showcase of what you do in the gym when no one else is there. You can play as many games as you want, but if your kid wants to get a scholarship or play at different levels, they have got to get their skills up. They've got to do what many kids are not doing anymore. And if they don't do that, they're just going to be like everybody else. And you don't want to be like everybody else. You have to be different. So the skill level, the old school effect has to come back into play, and kids have to get in the gym and spend hours upon hours. And I don't want them to think they should not play games, because they need that as well. But they've got to get in the gym. The skill level is the most important part.